because who doesn't have hardships, you know?
Yes.
And it's a part of life. It's a hard thing, and yet we really can become superhumans afterwards.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be back. Today, we have such a special treat in having my dear friend, Jenna, who is a licensed psychotherapist and virtual coach with a combined 17 years of experience. If you can believe it by even looking at her, that she has 17 years of experience with that youthful glow. But don't be fooled because she is very talented, very experienced, and we are so lucky to hear from her. So, Jenna, why don't you jump right into what inspired you and why I want people to hear you and to be able to get to know you is because you have such a compelling and inspiring story.
Wow. Thank you, Casey. Quite the introduction. Thank you. I love that. Yes, so I have been a licensed psychotherapist now and in this field for about 17 years. And I'm very passionate about the work that I do. I help a lot of people understand who they really are. They're the best versions of themselves for right then, because that is always an ever changing process. We always have iterations of who we are from one moment to the next, you know, but
Right.
helping seamlessly go through that and have it be fluid and helping people to do that and to become empowered after they have hardship, because who doesn't have hardships, you know?
Yes.
And it's a part of life. It's a hard thing, and yet we really can become superhumans afterwards,
I love
and
that.
really embracing that and understanding that.
Beautiful. And something I didn't mention in your intro that bears mentioning is that you are a published author and you have this beautiful book called Thrive by Design. And as I've gone through this book, the first thing that I really that I learned from you was a concept called post-traumatic growth. And I have it all marked up. And this is really a beautiful concept. And I think it's really what made me want to have you on my show because we talk a lot about, if you even go through YouTube, people are talking a ton about post-traumatic stress syndrome and how to get through it. And, there's so much like jargon about it and we hear so much about it.
Absolutely.
And then I hear post-traumatic growth, and I want to know more about what made you make that the crux of the beginning of your book. Can you tell us about post-traumatic growth?
Absolutely. You know, I really discovered post traumatic growth through my own journey. So, at a young age, at the age of 19 years old, which I also talk about this a lot in the book,
Yeah.
I had a really big hardship. I was diagnosed with cancer, which was, you know, I was a young kid at university, and all of a sudden, I went from feeling invincible to having, you know, I faced my mortality. I had this huge existential crisis. And I mean, obviously, that changed my life. There's something profound to be said about a young person facing their mortality like that.
Absolutely.
Um, it changed the way that I saw myself. It changed the way that I saw the world, myself in the world. And for a long time, I had a hard time. So I survived. Yay, I overcame cancer. And afterwards, getting back into my life, it was hard. I was so grateful and so blessed to have gotten through that. But learning how to navigate with that kind of understanding and feeling, you know, the weight of what can happen, you know, and with my specific diagnosis, the chances of it coming back were high those first couple of years following the diagnosis. And they gradually lowered within those first 10 years after the diagnosis, which has now been 20 years. So I'm very
Oh,
grateful. But
congratulations. So that you
thank
doubled it.
you. I've doubled it.
Yeah.
Um, but there was a lot of fear around um, moving forward, you know, moving forward with my life, getting married. This idea of like, will I have to face something like this again? Do I want to have kids in this? Do I want to? So there was a lot going on in my head, and I as a young person in my early mid-20s, I was seen in therapy. And
Mhm.
this is kind of what helped me understand that I wanted to go into this field in the first place
I love that.
is yes, is because I had EMDR and I learned about positive psychology, which we were having a quick conversation before this, and
Yeah,
it's not about a forced sense of toxic positivity at all.
yeah. I was
You
going to
know,
ask you
positive
that.
psychology, yes, is
Mhm.
taking the problem or the trauma that you had and realizing your strengths that you have from it and
Mhm.
realizing the purpose of your life after that, which probably is greater than before,
Yeah.
and then kind of putting that all together in a story that you tell yourself in your head about yourself and going forward.
Oh, I love
um
that. Tell me more
yes,
about the stories that we tell ourselves because as personally myself, I know that I have gotten stuck in my own story and it kept me stagnant and it kept me bitter and resentful until I saw that I had the ability to change the story. So tell me how you help your clients and loved ones facilitate doing that.
i love I love that because we all have these things in our lives that we can either say, oh, wow. And this is one of my favorite authors, Dr. Edith Eva Eger. She wrote The Choice. I actually have it right here. It's a book that I reread every single year because it's
Okay.
so amazing. But she says, so she's a Holocaust survivor, right? And can we think of something much more terrible than going through the Holocaust? She survived Auschwitz.
Mm.
Right after the war, she kind of embraced this victimhood mentality. And then in her 40s, she became a licensed psychotherapist and she became a psychologist. And she worked with Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, also survived Auschwitz. Very
Mhm.
interesting story there. But she has this great quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but
Sure.
she said, we all go through situations that we consider traumatic. Every single human being is going to go through something traumatic during the course of their life. But it is our choice if we embrace this victimhood mentality, because we are the only ones that can confine ourselves in this jail in our mind. This is
Yes.
a choice.
Hmm.
And so I love that. That's what I love working with people on, is
Yeah.
that is releasing themselves from the jail of their own mind, which when people can get stuck in that jail, it is so disempowering. That is what, that creates a reality in your life. If you
Yes.
believe that you are a victim, if you embrace this victimhood mentality, that is your life. That will be your life.
Yes.
However, if you kind of unlock yourself from that and you say, okay, these bad things, I was I was victimized, yes, but I am not a victim.
Hmm.
I am going to be empowered through this. I am going to become this. I got X, Y, and Z strengths from this that now I get to use in my life. And this is how they're serving me. And
Hmm.
and we also do a lot of things like, because for example, developmentally, sometimes people will get these defense mechanisms at different times or stages of their development that then as an adult or where they're at currently, it may no longer be serving them, but it served them at a time. So we can have gratitude that it was there then and
Hmm.
also release it from the body in the present to go forward and have the transformations that we now desire.
Oh, I love that. Let me ask you this because we can talk about this and it's like I'm like, yes, this feels true and I know it's true. And then I get into the real practice of life, right? And I have a specific person who I will not name because there's a small chance they may see this video. But there's a person in my life who I feel victimized by every time I'm around them. And
Mhm.
this is a person I cannot eliminate from my life. And it's somebody I actually really care about. And so how do we, because I know that I'm not the only one who has a person like this in their life. It could be, a blood relation of somebody or a close family friend or somebody in your community. But that, these people are always going to exist. And I feel personally attacked by this person every time I'm around them. But how do I utilize some of the practices that you're talking about to work through this in real time? Because I don't want to be resentful anymore.
Yes. Oh, Casey, you are so not alone in that, of course. I mean, we all have those people in our lives, and they may be a very important person, a person that we're not, I mean, society or culture might say, like, well, cut them out of your life, gone, bye, But what if it's an important, integral person in our lives and we're not
Yeah.
going to do that? That's not realistic, truly. And so the way that I look at that is, first of all, we create the meaning in our life.
Okay.
We all get to create the meaning. So if we're in any, this is what I help teach my people, my beautiful people that I have the great gratitude and pleasure to work with, that in any circumstance, you're creating the meaning. So our meaning is always subjective, right? So something might happen, but it only matters how we view that interaction and ourself in it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great things, one of the like quick and easy tools, because of course this takes kind of a long time to master,
Uh-huh.
but it's recognizing your strengths and what you can bring to the table in that moment. There's a lot of things that I use with my people, which is tapping, self-regulation techniques, deep breathing, grounding in the present moment, so you can do those things. And
Mm-hmm.
then on top of that, you can realize, okay, I'm going to create the meaning here. And one of my strengths is that, oh, I have humor. I can use humor and I know how to use humor. And sometimes it's just reminding yourself of your strengths. Maybe you're not going to use, well, you can say, okay, one of my strengths is that I can calm myself. This is a strength. So I'm going to calm myself in this moment, and I'm not going to be reactive to this
Okay.
person. And if we're not reactive and they're attacking and we're not reactive, it will end, you
Mhm.
know. So
Yeah.
we have a lot more power and control in these situations if we think about it in these terms of it all exists within our own meaning making. And that is also under the umbrella of narrative, because
Mhm.
our lives are the story that we are writing, right? We get to choose the story. There's a lot of agency in all of this, which I think is so beautiful and so empowering. But we write the story. We get to dictate how things will go. Not everything, things are going to always happen around us, like getting diagnosed with cancer. I didn't like choose, like, oh, I'm going to include that in my story. This is a fun detail. No, but retrospectively, and I didn't know all this at that time. I was
Yeah.
very young, but I get to write my reaction to it, my response,
Mhm.
how I choose to suffer, So,
Yeah.
and that it's really empowering.
Yeah. It reminds me of one of my favorite sayings is choose your hard. And the reason I love that is because no matter what happens in our life, there's going to be things that are hard for us. And
Yeah.
I like I have experienced a multitude of different kinds of hardships, and some of them were self-inflicted. Some of them,
Hmm.
like this specific instance of, feeling victimized by this person who probably means me no harm, but, the situation plays out where I feel victimized and I feel like, I make all these meanings, just like as you say, as you're talking, I'm seeing myself a little clearer, and it's humbling to see that, what if I change the narrative? What if I change the meaning behind it? What if I just said,
Yeah.
like sometimes there are difficult people that come into our lives, and they are our teachers too. I can choose the hardship of saying, well, that person's just hard. Or I could say, I'm going to choose the hardship of growing through this and
Yeah.
self-confronting of how I've created. And this is where my mind goes right now is I also create a narrative with people who
Yes.
I think should be the ones to change or, not make my life more difficult. So anyway, thank you for bringing that full circle for me. These are people that are going to exist in our lives. And I'm actually not a huge fan of saying, labeling that person is toxic, cut them out of your life, because it also cuts any accountability and growth from you. And there
Right.
are times when there's abuse or it's, sometimes addiction. But again, I am not a
Right.
huge fan of cutting people who are suffering out of your life. I feel like that saying, like when somebody draws a circle around themselves to keep you out, you draw a circle bigger so that it draws them in. That's how I want to live my life. And so, anyway, thank you for
Well, and
you.
what I love, what you're exhibiting so wonderfully, which I'm sure you do with all your clients, is that self-awareness. If a person can bring the self-awareness to the table, I mean, truthfully, although we're never going to be perfect, but that self-awareness, it can change everything,
Yeah.
right? If we can see ourselves in this situation and say, hey, it's not always somebody else's fault. My
Mhm.
marriage is here, it took two of us to get here. you
Yeah.
know yeah,
Mhm.
maybe my spouse was the one who had the infidelity, who actually went and did that.
Mhm.
But how did we get here? And I have seen countless times when a couple becomes stronger because of and an individual too, history of trauma, history of all these hard things, not feeling like they have a voice, not feeling like they're powerful, not feeling like they're seen in their job, by their spouse, by anyone, the voice, that's very important. This idea of my identity, I'm weak, I'm lesser than. I mean, we see that, you see that, I see that all the time. And to say, it's not necessarily somebody else's fault. I'm here too. What can I do? Because systems theory tells us that within the dynamic of any interaction, you change one part of that dynamic, it's going to change the entire system. So if I change in my marriage, it's going to change my whole marriage. If I change at my job, my workplace environment will change, etc.
Well, that's like the definition of creating your own reality. And I've heard that said, but I don't think it really clicked to me until you just talked about systems theory. That is how you create the narrative in your life. Is you change. Like they say in our biz, that small hinges swing big doors. So like
Yes.
one quarter turn, suddenly you're seeing a whole new horizon. And if you make a few little incremental turns, you have a completely new perspective to experience. And it makes me like really excited to have another opportunity to prove myself less of a victim, honestly. Like now I'm like, maybe I'm ready to embark on a better, more emotionally mature adventure with
Oh, Kacey,
difficult
I have the pleasure
people.
of getting to know you. I know you pretty well, and you do not embrace a victim. You are very empowered. But
Well, thank
that's
you
what
for saying
we can always iterate ourselves to the
that.
next
Yeah. Mhm.
level. So you're a great
Absolutely.
example.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really do appreciate your perspective. And I wanted to know from you before we close, I want people to know the depth that you have gained because of the depths that you have had to rise from. Like when I got to know your story, I immediately have felt endeared to you through your cancer journey. You have overcome so many things. And when I think of joyful, wild, abandoned living with happiness, I think of your face. So
Oh,
how did you do that? How did you do that?
well, thank you so much. First of all, that is such a huge compliment. And how you do this is, we know that there's always going to be the next hardship. There's always going to be something around the corner. Um, I see myself as being able to handle anything that comes my way, and having that belief about myself and helping my clients develop that kind of fortitude, because what we're working towards, honestly, always is to have more resilience. to know that, okay, hard things are coming. I don't know what's next, but I know I got this. And how do I know this? Well, my past, and this is another thing about positive psychology, which I think is really interesting, which is actually in some of the research studies, they took like a case study, a sample size of of a certain number of people. It was a pretty large amount of people, and did like case studies on these people's lives. And it was shown that 3 or more traumatic experiences in the person's life created this superhuman individual, right? These are like the leaders, the mentors, the coach. If you've ever had somebody in your life that inspired you, maybe they're famous, maybe it's Gandhi, maybe it's Mother Teresa, maybe it's your next door neighbor, whoever that is. I mean, you go talk to them about their life. To have wisdom and to have this kind of experience then shows you, first of all, if you embrace this, like, have the resilience and you embrace, you know I know I can make it through. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my life something hard or something big, it looked like there was something big coming up on the horizon, and I said, no, I got this. I got through cancer, uh finals, university or
Yeah.
in grad school. I got this. Oh,
Yeah.
my master's present, like, okay. Oh, getting married, I was very getting married was hard for me personally. Like, no, I can get this, because I've been through hard things. Marriage is not hard. That's another part of my story. But marriage was the
Which is,
best decision that I ever made in my life.
again, that part is in your book, and it is a beautiful part of your story, actually. And I've met your husband.
Thank you.
He was worth the risk. He really was.
Yes. Thank you. I had fear. I had a story around that, which was a lie, by the way.
Sure.
And I love doing that, helping people break down these fallacies, these lies that they have in their stories. Our brain tends to lie to us, and knowing when this is happening and how to overcome it and how to break through and unlock that jail cell. We're not going to get stuck in there,
Mm-hmm.
is so empowering. But
There's one part of your book that you actually reminded me, where you talk about like some actionable things. And this is something that I thought was really powerful. And it's something that I also teach my clients, but I feel like you laid it out beautifully in your book, are how we can do like little actionable things to prove to ourselves that we can do things that we promise ourselves that we are going to do. So, for example, like flossing your teeth, right? You can say, I'm going to floss my teeth, and then I'm going to floss a tooth. Like, flossing your teeth may be too much on your plate. And you may go, I don't want to floss between 30 spaces in my mouth tonight, but I can do one to prove to myself that I'm the kind of person who does the thing that I promise myself I'm going to do. And it lays it out in the book. And even like if you're the kind of person who likes to check a checklist that's in there, I mean, this is a really amazing book where it has like spaces for journaling, there's spaces for that, like that type of actionable item of things that you can do. So thank you for this book. And
you're
Jenna,
welcome.
if somebody wants to work with you or get your book or learn more about you, where can I send them? Because I will link everything in the description below so that they can have access to you.
Yes. Well, you can always set up we can set up a call, a 15-minute call, or anything right on my website. It's jennalinsky.com.
Perfect.
So from there, you can read. I have blogs on there. I have information about myself. You can set up a time. We can just do a short chat. It doesn't need to be like signing up yet. I'm love, and you can do all of that there.
Okay, I love that.
And I'm
Yeah,
honored. We're soul sisters, Kacey. We're soul
absolutely.
sisters.
Well, I am so grateful that you agreed to come on my show and bless my community with your perspective, with your experience, with your depth of knowledge, but also the effervescence that you have is contagious. And so if people want to work with you, I will make sure to link that below. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I am
Thank
so
you. Thank you for
grateful.
having me.